Welcome everybody to this 12th webinar. It's a joint webinar between OECD and COLEAD Fruit and Vegetable Industry Series. I will be the moderator of this session. My name is José Brambila, and I work for the OECD Fruit and Vegetable Scheme. As you know, this series, the aim is to try to give more information to traders, farmers associations, exporters, on what they can do and what they shouldn't do and exporting to big markets like the European Union. On this occasion, we will be dealing with navigating EU policies, regulations, and standards impacting fruit and vegetables value chains. And before we start, I would like to mention to you that we have live interpretation, French and English. So below in your screen, you can choose the channel that you want. We have two sessions. So the first session, we will be dealing more with regulation. And the second session, we will be dealing more with the impacts of those regulations for traders and farmers. We will have 10-minute presentations. So we will go through all the presentations. And the questions will be provided at the end. So if you have any questions, please, you can write them on the chat screen. And at the end, we will ask the panelists to answer all of your questions. If we don't have enough time, of course, we will follow up bilaterally with you via email to try to answer all the questions. So now I will give the floor to Inês Bastos. She's the Senior Expert Business Development Partner of COLEAD. And she will give you a welcome note. Inês, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And really, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I see some participants from really remote areas. So welcome to everyone to the 12th session of the OECD COLEAD Fruits and Vegetables Industry Series. As already mentioned, as you already know, we gather to explore a topic that is very timely and critical, which is the navigating the EU policies that impact fruit and vegetables value chains. As you all know, the fruit and vegetable sector is really a cornerstone of global agri-food systems, contributing to food security, to economic growth, and obviously to sustainable development. For producers, exporters, and all actors along the value chain, eventually some that are producing and not already exporting, but looking at the EU as a potential market, access to the EU market is really a huge opportunity in terms of the trust that the EU represents for the different stakeholders, in terms of the value. So this access is shaped, as we all know, by evolving landscape of policies, of regulations and standards. So it's really important to be quite aware of what's happening. And that's why we are here today, and we invited these the speakers, the experts that will bring their highlights on the different aspects. So understanding these frameworks is not just about compliance; it's about competitiveness, it's about releases, it's about sustainability. It's about being a true player in this sector. It's about ensuring that the small ones, the SMEs, can really thrive in a global market while meeting the EU high standards for food safety, environmental protection, and social responsibility. In my role in technical assistance, we usually say to our partner beneficiaries, to our members, that once you are ready for the EU, we can achieve the other international markets. Indeed, EU really sets the bar high, and it's good that it puts the high bar. So in this session, the speakers will have their contributions, will give their contributions to first demystify the key EU policies and regulations affecting your sector, share practical insights, because it's really important to have the practicalis, and a showcase of real stories from the field, showcasing how collaboration can turn challenges into opportunities. So on behalf of COLEAD, and before starting the session, I like obviously to give my gratitude to OECD. It's already the 12th session, so really it's an honor and a pleasure to co-host this series with you. A special thanks to the speakers, to the moderators, to the team that is building this webinar. the floor is yours. The floor is of the speakers that are here today. And because we have this format, a webinar, and we cannot see all the faces, just the faces of the ones that are the speakers at this session, maybe we could invite you in the chat to use the chat and to present yourself so that we understand from where you are joining the session. So your name, the company, and the country. So thank you so much, Jose, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Inês. Well, as we anticipated, we have two sessions. So now we will start with the first session, which is recent EU regulatory developments affecting fruit and vegetables value chains. And our first speaker will be Andrea Barrios. She is from COLEAD. She deals with EU policy and regulations. Andrea is a specialist in international relations with a PhD in international law. She has more than 20 years of professional experience in international trade, standardization, regulation, partnerships, and multilateral cooperation. She has led programs and strategic partnerships in the context of international organizations, World Health Organization, UNTAC, international level organization. And in the Mexican government, she was director for international standards and the chair of the Codex Committee for fresh fruits and vegetables. At ISO, as member, she was dealing with the membership and external relations of ISO and working with organizations as WTO, OECD, and other UN agencies. And previously, she was also advisor to the ISO's Deputy Secretary General. So Andrea will be sharing her presentation with us. Again, 10 minutes, please. Andrea, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just bear with me a second while I share the screen. So you should be looking at my screen right now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Today, I'm going to present AgriInfo, which is a tool that is developed by COLEAD and that is financed by the European Union. So AgriInfo is an information system which is financed by the European Union, as I said, and this is very important because that means that all the services that we provide are for free. What we aim to do is to provide you with updated information of the changes at the European regulations. The coming and upcoming changes of the European Union regulations that affect the agri-food sector. COLEAD, most of you might know already, is a Brussels-based non-for-profit private sector organization that implements development programs mostly in ACP countries, that is Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. And we received our funding from donors like the European Union. The target audience of our program is government authorities, producers, exporters, organizations, producers, farmers, everyone that wants to export or is interested in exporting to the European Union. So let's talk a little bit of why we have AgriInfo. So we, as you know, the European Union passed the Green Deal. And the aim of the Green Deal is to have healthier systems, food systems, both for the people and the planet. In order to implement the European Green Deal, we need new rules. And these new rules tend to be more stricter and demand more information from exporters. And of course, this affects the way in which exporters have to present information and the amount of information and the rules they have to comply with in order to access the EU market. So why do AgriInfo exist? We calculate that the European Union introduces around 180 new rules or changes to existing rules that affect the agri-food sector. So what we do is monitor all these changes. So one of my colleagues, every morning, she goes through all the information that the European Union publishes to see what are these changes. And this takes me to the second one, which is that we consolidate information in just one platform. And this is because the European Union, although it's very transparent and you have all the information that you need to know out there, it's very difficult to gather when you are on your own because you might never be sure that you have all the information or that maybe you're missing. And in any case, it takes a lot of time to go through all this information. And the last thing that we do is we simplify. We take this information, these changes to the EU regulations, and we put them in a language that is clear, simple, and concise so that people can understand exactly what is changing, when it's changing, what are the products affected, and very important, what I have to do in order to ensure that the flow trade is not interrupted. So what kind of information are you going to find in AgriInfo? For example, updates on the due diligence regulation, some information on single-use plastic packaging for fresh produce, which is going to be banned next year or starting this year. Guidance for organic operators and groups. We also do studies. We are currently doing some studies on novel foods and how they are regulated by the European Union and how hard or easy it is to get an authorization for novel foods. We're also doing studies on information transmission. That is how the information about the changes on the EU regulations go from the European Union all the way to the producers and exporters in specific countries. And we also do webinars. For example, at the beginning of this year, we have one on new EU rules on packaging and packaging waste. And last year, we had webinars on traces, exporting honey to the European Union, mineral oil hydrocarbons in food, and the ban of the use of BPAs and PFAS on packaging. Another thing that we recently launched is the pesticide emerald tracker, the maximum residue level of pesticide tracker. This is very useful. I will show it to you so you can see how it works. So what do we find in the AgriInfo platform? So we have these registries, which are basically summaries of the EU regulations and changes on existing regulation that explain, as I said, what is changing, when it's going to change, why it is important. We have webinars. We have all the recordings of the webinars, the slides and the Q&A in the platform. We have guides and explainers. We also have a help desk. If you have a question, you can send us an email and we will reply to you. We have updates. So we have a newsletter that you can subscribe for free and you will receive every 2 weeks. I will show you how it looks. And all the information in the web page is in Spanish, Portuguese, and French. It is translated using artificial intelligence, except for the guides, that those are translated by us. And then, of course, if you need to have more information, you can reach out to this email, and one of my colleagues is going to paste the email also in the chat so you can have access to it. So let's go to the web page. Could you please someone confirm that you are looking at the web page and not the slides?
Actually, we are on the slides.
Okay, perfect. So I'll share the web page now. Okay, now you should be looking at the web page. So this is how the AgriInfo web page looks like. So if you click here, you have the help desk. You just have to fill in this template with whatever question you have, and we will reply to you. It takes us about a week or less to reply. Of course, it depends on how hard the question is. You can subscribe to the newsletter here. Also very similar, you just need to fill in this template, and once it's filled in, you will start receiving the newsletter. How does a newsletter look like? So if you subscribe, what you will get is this one, sorry. Something that looks like this. So you will have, like an introduction about what are we discussing on this newsletter. what has happened in the past 2 weeks. So, for example, due diligence, like it has been gone through some changes, the vision for fisheries and aquaculture, MRLs on pesticides, some changes to be notified to WTO, more controls in Chinese arachidonic acid, animal health controls, and so on and so forth. So if you are interested in a topic, let's say animal health controls, you just click on read, and it will take you to these summaries. So you will find a small summary, and you can either choose to see the full report or the short version. The full report will take you to what's the update, what is changing, what are the impact products. Here we can see is beef, sheep meat, goat meat, and game meat. Why is changing? What's the timeline? Very important, since when this is going to be implemented, what are the recommended actions for you as an exporter, background information, where is this coming from, and resources, if I want to know more, where I can get more information. And finally, the sources from where we got this information, so that you make sure that everything that you are provided with is accurate. If you go to the short version, you just get like the highlights of the information, what is changing and why, what are the actions that need to be taken, and the timeline. So as I mentioned, we do webinars around 4 per year, and you can find them here in webinars. You will be able to see the past ones. All the recordings are there. If you click in, let's say, bisphenol and PFAS, for example, you will have also the summary, resources, English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese, the slides and videos, and we always publish as well the Q&A. So if there was a lot of questions here, you will find the questions and answers that we have in all of the webinars, given in Spanish, English, or French. If we go back to home, you can have here the publications. So some guidelines on different topics of interest, like organic operators and groups, EU trade policy, exporting aquaculture, the EU deforestation regulation, and so on and so forth. These guidelines are done in a very simple, clear language, so it's very easy for you to understand what this regulation or rules are about. And very important, we have a search engine, so you can search all of these summaries that we have done through the years. The only thing for those of you who English is not your mother tongue is that you need to search in English, and then you can have the information in different languages. So for example, if we put honey here, it will appear, like the emeralds of the French measure, the maximum residue level here for the acin, some other levels, maximum residue levels of different substances, list of non-EU countries establishments explained. If we click here, as I mentioned before, you can have the information in French, Spanish, and Portuguese here. So let's try with French, for example, here. And the same, you will have the resume, or you can see the complete summary, which this one is a little bit longer because it is an explainer. It's not just a summary, but an explainer. And you will find all the information here. It's very important for me to mention again that all the resources that you find here are publicly available, and they are for free, and they're for you to use. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us either through the help desk or the email that I mentioned before. And last but not least, I want to show you the pesticide emerald tracker. So the EU has a platform in which they put the pesticides, but they are done by substance. And what we try to do here is to put it by product, so it's easier for you if you export, I don't know, like clementines or something like that, that you know exactly what you need to look at for the emeralds. So let's say it's not clementines, but close enough, mandarins. If we check for mandarins, we will have the ones that have already been changed. For example, here we have clothianidin. The MRL is 0.01. We don't have any that have been recently changed. But then here in blue, you can see the ones that are under discussion. And this is very important because there's always maybe the chance for you to make comments. So you can go here to the report. This one, for example, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But if you go here, you can see in the full report if this is still open for, well, comments. You see there's a lot of products being affected. So this has already been closed on February 1st, 2026, but we have others in which, you still have time to provide comments to your contact point at the WTO. So this is more or less, in brief, the platform, and please have a look and use it. And that's all on my part. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Andrea. Remember, if you have questions for Andrea, put them on the chat, and at the end of the webinar, we will address them. We will move now to our next speaker. Her name is Jane Richardson. She works here with us at OECD. Jane has a degree in molecular biology from the University of Edinburgh and a PhD in microbiology from the Imperial College of London. She was previously employed at the European Food Safety Authority and is currently the principal administrator for the OECD Working Party on Pesticides, the Working Party for the Safety of Novel Foods and Feeds, and Working Party on the Harmonization of Regulatory Oversight in Biotechnology. So we are really glad to have Jane today with us. Jane, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'll just try. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So I am responsible for the Working Party Pesticides at the OECD. And we have we have many different activities, but we have two expert groups. And I thought I'd just share a little bit of the work of the expert groups. And obviously, if you have interest in this, you can come back to us and we can provide more information. So we have an expert group on residue chemistry. And we also have recently established an expert group on biopesticides. So one of the publications that we have is for crop field trials, also referred to as supervised field trials. I'll just move that, sorry. And these are conducted to determine the magnitude of a pesticide residue in or on raw agricultural commodities. And that also includes feed items. And they should be designed to reflect the pesticide use patterns that lead to the highest possible residues. And this field trial data is used to set maximum residue levels. So you can access the OECD guidance document, and this gives you more details about how you can run a crop field trial, although we also acknowledge this can be quite a costly activity. We also are responsible for maintaining the OECD MRL calculator. So MRLs are set at the minimum levels expected when a plant protection product is used correctly, following good agricultural practice. And the MRL calculator was developed to harmonize the approach to the calculation of MRLs. And obviously this then feeds in to measuring compliance with MRLs, which can be an issue in trade. So this calculator you can again download, and this, if you have your field trial data, you can actually calculate MRLs that would be applicable for that particular crop. It's made up of simple Excel spreadsheets, so it doesn't require extensive statistical knowledge from the user. If you read carefully the instructions before you start, it should be feasible for most people. And the MRLs ensure that any residue present in the food is below the levels considered safe for people, including vulnerable groups. So obviously this is pretty key piece of information for setting MRLs, and it helps us to ensure that when using pesticides, they're at a safe level for consumers. And this is obviously a key action for safe use of pesticides. But under the biopesticides group, we're starting to consider, is there an alternative? And I see in the agenda, we have some discussion about sustainability. And this is a potential solution for improving sustainability of pesticides. So biological pesticides are pest management agents which are derived from natural sources. They're usually less toxic than conventional pesticides. They can be very effective in small quantities or only affect a very narrow range of pests. The mode of action of the pest is often complex, reducing the risk of resistance development, and they generally degrade quickly and are not persistent in the environment. When used as a component of integrated pest management (IPM) programs, biological pesticides can reduce the use of conventional pesticides. And this isn't a new technology, to be frank with you. There are already many cases, farmers are already well aware of this, of using things like ladybirds and other small insects, which can, for example, control other biologicals which might be causing problems within the crop. So it's very much building on information that's already been used and developing this. But obviously, in some cases, we need more information on how we can use these biopesticides. And so the biopesticides group has collected together a lot of information and developed a dashboard, and you can access this from the link in the slides, which I hope will be shared afterwards. And it gives you information on existing guidance and test guidelines from the OECD or other sources to address specific data requirements for the submission and evaluation of microbial pesticide data. The volume of documents from various sources pertaining to guidance on evaluation is very widespread, increasing rapidly, but getting the key information that you need can be more difficult. And so we've developed this dashboard, and it's intended to provide regulators with accessible and structured information. And this should help the broader adaptation of biopesticides as an alternative to chemical pesticides. Just to add, there is work ongoing in applying problem formulation, which is becoming a quite common technique for performing risk and safety assessments. And this is an ongoing work which the Working Party on Pesticides is working on. So I just wanted to give you note of some publications that are already available. So we list a couple of examples here. There is more information on the biopesticides website. And for example, bacteriophages, which are typically host-specific, have a very limited host range of a very few species or the same genus. So one or a few, say, of the strains of the same species, their extreme specificity means they will not affect bacteria or beneficial soil or plant organisms other than their host. So we can see that these biological products can help us if we have a plan for sustainable agriculture, and also, most importantly, have the potential to reduce the use of traditional chemical pesticides. And I've also put a recent publication from the Residue Chemistry Group, as they provide a lot of information on how to test using OECD test guidelines for residues in different commodities. And in this case, this is stored commodities. So that's my slides. Thank you very much for allowing me to present.
Thank you very much, Jane. Again, if you have questions for Jane, remember at the end of the session, we will provide them to Jane. We are moving to our next speaker. So his name is Charles Mensah. He works for the University of Essex. Charles is a sustainability researcher and author specializing in waste governance, corporate accountability, and capability development. His work spans circular economy transitions, sustainability systems, project design and implementation, learning and quality assurance, and program evaluation. He has contributed to decarbonization, net zero, and waste management initiatives, supporting sustainability reporting, policy review, and the development of practical decision support and learning resources. He is also engaged in initiatives that promote sustainability education and career development. And Charles holds a Master in Business Administration and is currently a PhD researcher at the University of Essex, where his research centers on sustainability, governance, and plastic waste accountability. So now we give back the floor to Charles. Charles,
Yeah,
please.
thank you very much. Thank you. I'm really grateful for the opportunity today to present here. And thank you to the other speakers for sharing their insight. And so today, my session, I'm going to look at packaging and environmental sustainability reforms, how fresh fruits and vegetable trade is being impacted by this. And before we start, there are so many other reforms, EU reforms affecting fruit and vegetable packaging. And I'm sure Agrifo and COLEAD have had sessions on some of these. So I'm going to look at the packaging and packaging waste regulation, which I'm sure Agrifo and COLEAD has sessions on it. So I'm going to give a brief session of what packaging and packaging waste regulation is, what the rules are, what the reforms have been in relation to plastics, in relation to recyclability, in relations to labeling and chemical safety. I'll look at how does packaging and packaging waste regulation has or will impact trade in relation to commodity, in relation to supply chain, as well as operational and cost. Then look at the practical considerations for exporters. Then look at as well the requirements and responsibilities for buyers. Then give a key action for the sector. So what is packaging and packaging waste regulation? This is a new EU rules on packaging that is from the design to waste management and waste prevention. It actually replaces the old packaging waste directive, as this old directive allowed each member state to interpret the rules differently. But this is now a uniformed regulation that covers everyone and each and every country that is placing their fruits and vegetable into the EU market. And this will take effect, or basically will take effect from August 2026. So what has really changed? Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So there are some reforms of this packaging and packaging waste regulation that is affecting fresh produce. We will start by looking at the plastic reduction measures. Now, the packaging and packaging waste have brought about, the EU has brought about restricting certain single-use plastics. That is the format for fresh produce sold in unit. And the format has been able to, there have been a phasing out of certain single-use plastics for fresh produce sold in unit under 1.5 kg. So these items that the EU is restricting and as the single-use format are small bags such as the lightweight films and trays. So we have fresh produce and fruits and vegetables. For example, when you go to your local supermarket, we have the grapes, the strawberries that are in lightweight forms, they are in small bags. So now there are restrictions on it. And these restrictions, it's about phasing out certain single use. So some of these units sold, they need to be under 1.5 kilograms. So because of this, there are some restrictions that are coming on how to reduce the plastic waste and the reduction of it. Now, the Commission will be publishing an EU-wide exemption list that will be identifying packaging format where plastic remains necessary. So even though there are plastic reduction measures in relation to how single-use plastic formats for fresh produce will be sold, there will be an EU-wide exemption list. And this exemption list will target plastics that remain necessary for hygiene, that remain necessary for safety and shelf life reasons, for quality assurance as well. So right now, even though the format is changing, there is something that we need to consider in relation to plastic waste reduction or plastic reduction measures. Now, the PPWR, what has changed in relation, or what will change in relation to recyclability requirement? Now, we have to know that every packaging placed on the EU market will need to achieve a minimum recyclability performance grade. So we have the A to A, B, C, D grade, where some of these grades need to be defined because we are moving away from just using recyclability materials to demonstrating that packaging can actually be collected, it can be sorted, it can actually be recycled within the EU market or EU system. So there is now going to be a minimum recyclability performance grade. And this is something that exporters and buyers need to have in mind. There is also going to be the fresh produce format that is on the market has, as much as possible, some structures that maintain life cycle. And there will be much more pressure on multi-layer films and modified atmosphere packaging that we mostly called MAP structures. These structures often combine different polymers, such as coating and others that makes them difficult to recycle. So under these new rules, these formats are likely to fall into lower recyclability grades, which means that they will face pressure, much more pressure during the redesign phase and needs to be replaced. So for recyclability requirements, exporters and buyers needs to take this into consideration because the EU is trying to find as much as possible to shift onto a monomaterial packaging. That means that all PETs, all PE, all PP structures, where it will be easier to sort and recycle at scale to achieve a higher recyclability grade. Now, the next is the labeling and chemical safety. Now, we all know the forever chemicals. And we have to have in mind that this forever chemicals needs to be out of our market. So what is the EU or the PPWR doing? They're introducing several changes, and the PFAS is some of these limits, and it's now applied to all food contact packaging. Any packaging or any food that touches the packages touches the food directly. There is now limit to it, and there needs to be a compostable PLU, which is the price lookup stickers that we mostly find on our fresh produce, and it needs to be compostable because mostly our EU market has non-compostable PLU, which makes recycling very difficult. Now, the third on this aspect is the introduction of a harmonized sorting label to replace all national systems. And this is going to help eliminate current patchwork of national systems that makes and is going to make sorting very easier, simpler, and more recognizable and consistent across the EU market. Thank you. The next slide, please. So now, what are some of the impacts on this new regulation on commodity? So we have commodities such as tomatoes, such as avocados, such as citrus, onions, and garlics. These commodities are going to have some form of reform impact. And these commodities are going to have plastic restrictions, which I've already described about, because these commodities mostly uses plastic nets, they use mesh bags, they use plastic trays, they use net. So they are going to be impacted by these plastic restrictions. Now, commodities such as grapes, berries, cherries, such as leaf greens, herbs, they are going to be impacted by the recyclability requirement that I've already explained. So exporters and buyers need to be aware of this. They need to have in mind that these are some of the impact that their commodity that they are putting onto the EU market are going to the impact this reform will have. Now, in relation to cut and ready to eat produce, we have to know that both of these reforms apply. That is the plastic restrictions and recyclability requirement. They are going to apply. So if you are dealing in cut and ready to eat produce, you have to know that these are some of the requirements that this impact will have on your business. And also all fresh produce. All fresh produce uses the PFAS limit. So you have to have in mind that is your fresh produce will have an impact on compostable PLU stickers. Do you have compostable PLU stickers? You need to have this in mind and make sure that your commodity, the impact that it doesn't really affect you that much as going forward. Now, for the supply chain, what are some of the impacts that is going to happen for supply chain? Now, we know that most fresh produce put on the EU market is from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia. And these exporters rely heavily on protective packaging to maintain quality over long shipping times. So what is the impact of this? You have to know that these people, these suppliers face disproportionate risks from these reforms, not just because of the reforms itself or the rules itself, but because of the viable alternatives that do not yet exist. So we have to know that on an export scale operations, this impact will affect supply chain because of the quality assurance maintaining over a long period of time. Now, what is the cost involved or the operational impact in relation to this regulation? You have to know that as this regulation is coming in place, there will be packaging redesign. There will be cost in relation to testing and certification, as well as new supplier and buyer agreement. And these costs are real. We have to talk about it. They are accumulating. And we have to know that the sector needs to ensure that an investment goes into it. They shouldn't underestimate this cost. Also, the next one is the impact on market access. What is the impact on fresh produce in relating to market access? Now, the EU buyers will particularly will require recyclability documentation. They will require that there is PFAS test and traceability. They require that there are non-compliance risks. Otherwise, some of these exporters coming into the market will be delisted from coming into the EU market. So every person, both the exporters, the buyers, they need to ensure that what is the impact on their market, the impact on getting access into the market in relation to this PPWR regulation. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the practical consideration for exporters? What do exporters need to do? Exporters need to consider their packaging footprint. Before exporters make any changes, they need to have a clear understanding of their packaging footprints. This means that they need to map every packaging format used across all products exported to the EU. They shouldn't just consider their primary pack. They need to consider all secondary related formats, including even adhesives such as and coatings and labelings. They need to ensure that they understand their packaging format. And once everything is mapped, the next steps that they need to involve is to identify the materials involved. They need to identify the plastics involved. They need to identify the multi-layer films. they need to ensure that these components that determine whether a format meets recyclability requirement or fall under the 1.5 kg plastic restrictions are identified. And when this is identified, exporters need to ensure that they flag formats that are likely to fall under the PPWR. That means that any structure that is difficult to recycle, they need to identify it as early as possible so that they can prioritize redesigning and avoid any surprises from buyers when they ask for update on specification. The next one that exporters need to ensure is looking at their strengthening compliance document. Now, exporters need to strengthen this because maintaining PFAS tests, maintaining certifications on all food contact packaging is very essential. Exporters need to ensure that what their buyers are requesting in relation to due diligence process, in relation to ensuring that PFAS limits the application, they need to update any packaging specifications and technical files that will ensure they gain access into the EU market. And finally, they need to ensure that all traceability of materials and suppliers and supplies are in full. They need to demonstrate where the materials are coming from, who supplied them, and how they are processed. This will give exporters and both exporters and buyers the full assurance and trust needed. Now, the next one that exporters need to consider is redesigning high-risk format early. Now, some of these formats that are likely to fall under and fall short under the PPWR needs to be prioritized. So, for example, lightweight plastics, multi-layer films that perhaps will gain that their formats will gain a higher recyclability formats. They need to ensure that these are prioritized. And in prioritizing it, they need to ensure that there is a shift toward a monomaterial structures. That means that recyclability needs to move away from just being theoretical. It needs to be in practice. Means shifting to perhaps all PETs, all PE, all PP, because these are much more easier to sort. These are much more easier to recycle. So, and I believe that the transition doesn't happen overnight. We cannot say that all exporters need to start designing their transition now. So, in redesigning everything, we need to ensure that exporters have to have this in mind so that they can position themselves much more higher when these regulations come into place in August. Now, the next one is engaging with the EU buyers early. Exporters need to ensure that their relationship with the EU buyers start as early as possible. That means that they should share packaging specification and audit results as early as possible than waiting for buyers to request for it. Now, buyers need to have this information not just for themselves, but as a regulatory obligation. The next one is also ensuring that they align on which packaging formats and transition timelines that needs to go on between them. And finally, they need to ensure that they discuss any cost sharing, if there is in their contractual agreement, that there will be cost sharing for redesigning of materials, there will be cost sharing for testing and certification, so that there will be a smooth transition in relation to the rules and regulations that is coming in place. The next slide, please. Now, what are some of the implications for buyers? Buyers need to update any supplier requirement that they have. They need to integrate recyclability criteria into their standards and code of conduct, because this will determine which packaging formats are acceptable under the PPWR. They need to also include PFAS limits and composable PULU stickers rules. They need to start now. They need to request that exporters have this in their rules and in their contractual clauses. They need to ensure that they are having compostable PLU stickers. And also, buyers need to request full packaging documentation from exporters. They shouldn't wait for the exporters to bring it. They need to be proactive and requesting this full packaging documentation. Buyers also need to support suppliers through this transition. Exporters cannot redesign packaging alone. They need to ensure that when exporters are repackaging, they are redesigning their packaging, they need to have a clear guidance from what buyers might want, what format and materials that is acceptable going forward. Buyers also need to run a joint trial, as in when new materials and formats are coming into place. They need to have a collaboration so that they will be able to reduce certain risks, speed up adoption as well, and ensure also that recycled or redesigned packaging meet both regulatory requirements and what these retailers they need for performance expectations. Now, the next one, which is the final one, is the compliance risks. Buyers need to ensure that they verify as early as possible all packaging meets EU recyclability and labeling rules. They need to ensure that all these rules, they are embedded in packaging compliance and contract as early as the onboarding phase. So before any contract is given, you need to ensure that the packaging and packaging rules are met. The PPWR conformity and conditions need to be met. These are some of the things that buyers need to ensure they have and they are going in accordance with it. Thank you very much. The next slide, please. The last slide. So what are some of the key actions for the sector? What does the sector, which moves away from just buyers and suppliers? Now, both the full supplier chain or both the sector, which includes the buyers and the suppliers and everyone, we need to make sure that packaging is visible. We need to ensure that there is full transparency on materials. There is full transparency on structures that needs to come in place. And also compliance needs to come across the entire life cycle. It doesn't really, we have to know that most supply chains, some of them have a consolidated view on what materials are in their packaging. So we have to ensure that there is full transparency. Which materials contains PFAS, which formats on the EU market will be deemed recyclable. We need to ensure that this packaging visibility there is full transparency and it's done as early as possible. Now, there should be a redesign of high-risk formats as early as possible, and this should come first. We need to ensure that prioritization of lightweight plastics, PLU, compostable PLU stickers. These are some of the things that needs to be redesigned early. So if you are a buyer, you are an exporter, you need to have in mind that this is some of the things that needs to come early. And you shouldn't wait for the year 2030 before we start doing that. Because if that happens, you're going to face much more restrictions and penalties. And you have to know that today there are so many things that are going on in R&D, and this, as early as much possible, your research and development needs to be essential. Now, the last point before I come to a close, the sector needs to have a relationship. They need to strengthen the buyer and supplier collaboration. That means that there should be shared data, there should be shared timelines, and shared investment if possible, so that it makes the transition workable. There should be a relationship, and it needs to ensure that any disruptions that comes can be navigated. Because as I earlier said, the cost to transition is not small. It's really real and it's accumulating each and every time. So to ensure that the relationship comes into place and ensure there is trust between suppliers and buyers, we need to ensure that there is strengthening of collaboration, and any investment that needs to go into it, the sector has to put this in mind. It should be one of the things that needs to come in place to ensure this is done. So thank you very much, and I will hand over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are moving to the second section of this webinar. So first we listen to all the regulations, all the institutional approach. Now we're moving to the impacts on exporters and producers. And for that, we're really proud to have Mr. Faly Rasamimanana. He's the managing director of Faly Export, a Madagascar-based company specialized in the export of fresh fruit, particularly lychees, to international markets. He has many years of experience in the horticultural export sector, and he works closely with producers, exporters, and international buyers to strengthen the quality management, traceability, and compliance with international market requirements. He's also actively engaged in strengthening producer cooperatives, enabling small farmers to work together, pool resources, reduce production costs, and improve their competitiveness in export markets. Through these efforts, he contributes to enhancing the sustainability and performance of Madagascar's fruit export value chains. So we welcome Mr. Faly. The floor is yours.
So, hello everyone. Hello. So, my name is Faly Rasamimanana. I am General Manager of Faly Export. So, my presentation is to help access to the EU market to small producers using a system that is called SPG-FIHAVANANA. So what is FIHAVANA? It is a value which helps people in Madagascar to work together in order to favor, let's say, meeting European requirements and standards, right? Thanks to a participatory approach. And thanks to FIHAVANANA, we will be able to strengthen Madagascar's contribution to the European market in terms of fruits and vegetables. So this is SPG FIHAVANANA, this participatory guarantee system, right? It is a social innovation. Yep, sorry, here we go. So this is a social innovation that blends cultural tradition and new digital technology and obviously international standards. So SPG FIHAVANANA is, let's say, a system that allows people to have a better understanding on the organic sectors and the specification of the system. So we need to take into account that there is this double divide, right? And the current model is failing. Why? Well, because 95% of producers are excluded. Most of the time, small producers cannot read or write, and this third-party certification process imposes prohibitive audit costs, often exceeding farming households' annual income. And so we decided that we needed to come up with a solution to help them. So what we did is what I call a system culturation, right? So to rooting the system in the Malagasy traditions to create this authentic participatory guarantee, right? So we have in Madagascar, right, respect of elders is so important. So we need to include this in this approach to good practices. And if we do this, many people will adhere to the approach. So, for instance, in Madagascar, elders are always first served. So if we can take this into account, well, there will be this adhesion to this new practice. And so to make this possible, we'll talk about, I'll present you the local governance unit. So what we call a local governance unit. So we try to adapt, right, to the local context. And so we have 3 entities for this local governance. The Council of Elders. This is about moral legitimacy, right? The elders, as I mentioned earlier on, play a very important role, and they will try to manage conflicts between stakeholders, right? And they ensure the social cohesion. Then we have what we call the I Committee. So these are technical experts who check the compliance of this good practice with the international market requirements. So we have younger people, technicians who are part of this entity. And then finally, we have what we call the Market Committee. So this is the marketer, right? So this is about trade, logistics, the interfacing with the sustainable community platform. Because so we have this sustainable community, right, for everyone to join and work together to meet this common objective. So how can we monitor or manage this? Well, we tried to encode standards without text, because as I said, many producers do not read or write, and so we need to use pictures. And so we have picture books, which makes it possible for producers, farmers to understand the rules. So you can see this here on the screen. And so when it's in green, these are the compliant practices. And then the red images are the prohibited practices. And so this is very important. Then we also have in Madagascar a sacred oral commitment, the oath, right? This is so important, and it replaces an incomprehensible written contract with a community validated commitment. Sometimes it is enough to abide by, let's say, a deal, to just take an oath, to swear in front of everyone, and this holds greater moral value than a signature, right? The oath, Dina. And this is done, this oath is taken in front of the elders, in front of the local authorities. And so to facilitate all of this, we set up an app which is called the Holy Apply, or the Holy App, right? Especially now with the use of AI, well, obviously everything is been made much easier, even for people who are not really good at using technology. So this new tech, this app, is a digital lever, right? It allows us to turn declarations into proof. So you have here the app on the screen. Now, with a smartphone, which is rather cheap nowadays. So thanks to this tool, you can take a picture or a video, and everything will be shared in real time on the server, right? So all good practices on let's say on the ground, right, are shared and known to everyone, and this makes it so much easier for auditors, as they do not need to go out in the field. They know what is being done, what practices are being implemented. And this can also be used for internal audits. Thanks to pictures and videos, well, you have your proof. So when you do this internal audits, so this is automated, right? And it's also geolocated. So you know exactly where the pictures and the videos come from. And you also have the date and hour, or date and time, sorry, at which the picture was taken or the video was taken. So you cannot falsify all of this, right? This is real time, raw information. Now, this app allows us to reduce the cost and guarantee compliance with international standards. And also, yeah, this is credible, right? And as I said, this allows this real-time traceability. And so producers no longer have to write. They just need to take videos, pictures, and these are automatically sent to the server, and the internal auditors know in real time what is being done, where the produce is in real time again, at what stage or step of the process it is. And so, yeah, this is how we do traceability thanks to this participatory approach. Then we also have training modules, as we organize remote training thanks to this same tool, especially now that we have Starlink. Anyone can be connected wherever they are, and so anyone can take a training course. And quite often farmers make mistakes because they have not received the right training. Now they can train in real time wherever they are. So there's no more barrier to, let's say, access training. So yeah, that's our app, Holy. This is a technology serving trust, right? Because this was the big issue that we were faced with. This is why you needed these certifications. You needed to be certified using several referentials. But thanks to Holy app, well, I mean, everything is accessible in real time. And with this app, so this is an app that we created and have implemented, and we cannot skip a step, right? So this obviously makes the system even more credible. And as you have the geolocation, the time tags, the date tags, it's irrefutable evidence, accessible to anyone. And especially there is the voice guidance that makes it possible for anyone to use. So this is a viable economic model with measurable impacts for producers. It is a sustainable model because it is trade not aid, you know? This is, let's say, we take part of the added value, which we then invest in a common fund to finance internal controls for social protection. And this is what creates this loyalty of users to the system that we have implemented. So yeah, you have here the explanation why people adhere to this new system. Because, well, before we started using SPG, we only had 5.4 million areas. And so now with SPG, well, the value has increased quite considerably at 8.1 million. So an increase by 51% following this certification. And so this system complies also with the SDGs. It is a sustainable approach. You can see the social impact, for instance. We have been able to provide access to education to over 1,000 children. So there was a lack of teachers, but we organized a smart TV system thanks to the coverage by Starlink. So even though in some places we do not have teachers, well, the children have access to the education as if they were in urban areas. Same for health. Often in Africa, Mr. Faly, perhaps you could summarize, right? 2 minutes, please. Right? Yeah, I only have one slide to go. Yeah, so as I was saying, in Africa, we don't have enough doctors. So thanks to technology, we can now do a remote doctor visits. And then we also have been able to reduce a pesticide poisoning. There has been a very strong economic impact, as I mentioned, and regarding the environment, we are also trying to work on carbon capture thanks to agroforestry. And the carbon credits obviously allow us to, let's say, to have a stronger financial, let's say, structure. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for bearing with me.
Thank you very much. So now we are moving into the questions section. We are running out of time, so we're going to be fast. Any additional questions, we will follow up bilateral via email with you. So I start with Jane. Jane, this one is for you. And they are asking if you conduct field research and in which countries do you set up your agronomic experiments?
So we don't generally, obviously in some cases there's field research, but at the OECD level, we tend to focus more on developing what we call consensus documents. So one of the cases that I showed you were the two documents, one about baculovirus and in these cases, these are what we call consensus documents, and they've been built using systematic review. It's something we actually do in collaboration with the EU and EFSA. And we try to characterize aspects of these biopesticides. So, for example, we consider things like risks to human health, risks to non-target organisms, whether they produce any kind of toxins or peptides, these types of things. So these are all evaluated. And this gives us a general consensus across our working party, but we also have input from many regulators who are collaborating with the OECD on this document. And this gives a kind of common agreement of how safe this product is to use. And generally with biopesticides, they have a lot lower risk than, for example, conventional pesticides. So you can access those from the OECD biopesticides website, and we're also developing more of these documents to support people changing or to using more biopesticides. It may be that you still need a mix between conventional and biopesticides, but to reduce the amount of chemicals and increase the number of biopesticides.
Thank you very much, Jane. I have a question also for Andrea and Charles, because it's about a database. So the question is there any database at AgriInfo or the European Commission where you can find easily information such as the MRLs or pesticides for fruit and vegetables on what is compliant or not in terms of packaging, its format, the rate of recycled components, the labeling relating to these prohibitions? So for Andrea and Charles. First, Andrea, please.
I'm not aware of the existence of such a platform, but I think Charles might be, better at us answering this question.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you, Charles.
I'm sure the EU, the PPWR itself, the document itself might have those information, but I am not aware of it. Perhaps I can check the Joint Research Center technical paper, if possible, maybe check that. I'm not sure at the moment, so I can't say that I'm vividly right about it, but you can check the Joint Research Center, perhaps their technical paper or the Commission's guidance notes to see if this is something that can answer your question.
Thank you, Charles. We have one question for Monsieur Faly. So, is the SGP recognized by the European Commission as a certification of organic management system?
Certification is an ongoing process. It's a system that we are in the midst of setting up in Madagascar, and it's just been recognized by our government. And there's been a decree, an application decree, which just came out some 20 days ago. And so it will soon be implemented in our country. Once it will be enforced in our country, in the lychee sector, we are going to try and export 1,000 tons of quality lychees, and everything will be tracked in real time. Hygiene, environmental best practices. And that's where consumers and the various players will be able to test and see if this is compliant with the European norms. So this is where we are right now.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. So again, for the remaining questions, since we are running out of time, we will answer them via email or bilaterally with you. Now I will give the floor to Ahoefa. Ahoefa, please, so for the conclusion and the way forward.
Thank you very much to all the participants and panelists. So yes, as José just said, we couldn't cover all the questions, answer all the questions. However, we will make sure that through the platform which is available, we'll make sure that you get answers, and we'll make sure that you try and exchange. So we'll ask you to join this forum with this session's topic in order to answer all the questions. So thank you very much. All these questions you asked in the chat, very good questions, and that's where you will find answers to these questions by the panelists. So once again, thank you very much to all the participants and panelists who ensured this high-level discussion, and I'm sure that this discussion proved that navigate through these topics is not only a question of compliance, it's a question of strategy for every company, and they'll have to implement them.
recently there have been changes in pesticides, border controls, market access and competitiveness. And I believe the various speakers today shed light on the very concrete implications for our companies. And we've underlined the importance of residue management systems in order to reduce export risk, but also we saw that packaging is a strategic challenge, and which will require adaptations, and which will impact various suppliers. And we heard and we understood that the realities on the field, especially for exporters and SMEs, and also necessary adaptation is a true challenge that companies must face. And I believe Faly gave an excellent presentation, and this tool he presented shows that there are innovative solutions and that they will be able to facilitate getting into compliance and making these markets more available and bolstering trust amongst the value chains. And what we can take away from today's meeting is that we need to better anticipate various regulatory changes. We also need to invest in traceability, compliance and control mechanisms, and we also need to support innovations that come with this transition. But there is this platform I like to talk about. The platform has been set up. I'm talking about the International Research Consortium, which is an Africa-Europe platform. And this is an excellent opportunity for you, dear exporters and their experts, to access to very concrete knowledge, develop collaboration, and take part in the development of food systems. So you may join this website. It's on the chat. You can connect, look around, see the various resources available, and join the community. And once again, I would like to thank the various speakers. Thank you very much, José, for the moderation. Thank you to the various colleagues, Nina, Gaton, Inês, and thank you very much to the team of interpreters who's been working with us for these various series. And so we'll see you later on in the forum, or throughout the week during the forum, and in order to carry on with this discussion. And we'll also see each other in May again during the next session, in which we will be tackling the role of AI. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much for your active participation in the chat. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ahoefa. Thank you very much to everybody. As Ahoefa said, we see you at the next webinar focusing on artificial intelligence. And again, thanks to all of you for your participation. As Ahoefa said, to the speakers and to on our side, to the COLEAD team for the excellent organization of the meeting. And again, we invite you to attend the next webinar. We hope you will be able to attend. And thank you very much. So we close now this 12th OECD COLEAD webinar. Thank you very much.